Hey everyone. Yeah, sometimes even Mac run out of battery. So I'm very excited to be here. Nebular Summit, Cosmos is kind of our home in Lava. We started with this ecosystem a bit more than a year, but really feel here amazing and connected. So I want to talk to you today about public good and how do we give access, much better access to the Interchain. And I want to start with RPC, right? That's the basic, the core protocol of how do you read write to the blockchain. Easy as an ABC RPC. So if you think about RPC, that's the protocol that helps us get access, account balances, gas fee, everything in order to communicate with the different blockchains, hundreds and thousands of blockchains that exist today in the ecosystem, especially in Cosmos. But there are three ways of how we today get access with the ecosystem itself, with the blockchain itself. And I want to start with a question. Who here is running his own node? Perfect. Who is here running nodes for less than 5 chains? Who here is running node for more than 10 chains on Cosmos? Perfect. As you see, nobody wants to run his own node. And this is something that Moxie said 1.5 years ago. That actually gave us the kickstart in order to come and build Lava. Nobody wants to run their own node because it's complicated. As blockchain adoptions grew up, it doesn't make sense to run your own node. So when you starting to get access to an ecosystem, you actually look at the public RPC. Public RPC is where every dev starts. Every developer, when he's coming to Juno, to Axela, to every blockchain here, needs a reliable RPC. And how does he do that? With a public RPC. But today, RPC, if we're speaking between us, it's like the backyard of every ecosystem. Because you don't know what's really going there. So for big protocol, big ecosystems, they're not incentivizing top providers to come because it's very hard to aggregate them. So for devs, you have only one solution. If you don't want to run your RPC, if you don't want to run your own node, if you don't want to use a public RPC, you go to the centralized provider. And we identify 4 problems today with a centralized provider. And as the name hints, you think about single point of failure. When they're down, nobody can get access. You don't know even your MetaMask account balance. You think about censorship. Everyone remembers here Tornado Cash last year and OFAC censor Tornado Cash. So obviously, that's a real problem when you think about the value as censorship resistance. The last thing is privacy. What about the privacy? Guys, we came to blockchain to have some privacy, right? And we don't use it today. We don't get it today if you trust a single provider, a centralized provider, collecting the data and probably sells that. The last thing we wanted to address is the data accuracy. Because when you think about it today, data accuracy doesn't really exist. If you trust someone to bring the data to you, how do you know the data is even from the blockchain at all? And this is what we came up with a conclusion in the last 1 year. When you think about node infrastructure, nodes as a service, reliability is a super, super important word. And if you want to attract to your ecosystem, to L1s, L2s, Interchain, Cosmos ecosystem, you cannot do that with a bad UX, UI, and bad developer experience. So that's what we do in Lava. Lava is a peer-to-peer incentivized network of top RPC API providers, and we're trying to do that with a reliable and much better way to get access to all the blockchain. And the way we do that is that we're creating an incentive for every node runner. We aggregate all the providers on one side of the chain. At the other side of the market, we come up with the different ecosystems and create an incentive pool that at the end of the day attract the nodes. And our peer-to-peer market helps us that if one developer is running in infra, one developer is running one of the nodes in Agoric, for example, in Paris, another developer that needs the access in London can get it immediately. So it's kind of the Uber for nodes. We help node runners to incentivize their existing infrastructure. Already running the infrastructure, why not monetize that, right? Why not creating another monetization stream and revenue stream for them? So we think about a pool, something like when you think about a liquidity pool and Uniswap, think about Lava pool together with ecosystem to attract developers. And once you list 1, 2, 3 nodes, immediately you can get revenues. We see between $300 up to $700 a month per node. This is significant. So I want to talk to you a bit about now how Lava works. So when we created Lava, we thought how we can attract node providers to come, how we hold them accountable, and how we make sure that the data they serve is being reliable. So every provider can join Lava. It takes 5 minutes up to 30 minutes. Sign up on Lava. We are an appchain on Cosmos built on Tendermint and obviously Cosmos SDK. And we have a list of providers that staking Lava. They're staking Lava in a specific geography, which I'm going to elaborate a bit later. And the dApp, when they coming and need a specific request, RPC API request, immediately they being paired with a fleet of nodes. So if one node goes down, immediately we can revert it to the other node. And one of the things that from the beginning was a game changer is our SDK. Imagine that exactly from the browser, you're going to get access to a fleet of nodes that in one click give you an uptime of 99.99%. So just to talk about a bit key features of the protocol, and we're summarizing them for 3. Auto pairing. Everyone in Lava needs to be stake Lava in a specific geography place. And why is that? Because latency is super important. Because if you think about a node that needs access to Starkware, you need access to Agoric, we want to maintain the same geographic feature, the lowest latency as possible. And we do that by making sure that geographic is the first place. The second is the accuracy and data freshness. Me and my co-founder, we bring a lot of experience in building startups, in building open source, developers tools. And when we came to crypto, sorry to say that, but we felt like the infra is shit. Right? Like, woo! Bucky? Yeah. So, we were investigating a lot. We put a lot of time to think how we can create this kind of win-win, kind of incentivized pool. But when we receive data, we actually know it's originated in the blockchain. And we're doing that by making sure that the uptime, the freshness, and all the feature of the node runners is held accountable for what they bring. And this is how they've been incentive. Because if you're a developer, you can use Lava subscription as 1 month, 3 months, 1 year, and get access to all Web3. But at the same time, you want to make sure that the node runners are getting incentives for their service. So node runners that bringing better service will be incentivized much better. So we launched in Lava 3 types of product. We have the server kit, we have the gateway that's been running for a few months, and last week we announced our SDK, guys, first Lava SDK. It's been very exciting because it's first year, and it was exactly 1 year after we found Lava, and coming up with such a tool that for us, we think, it's going to bring so much benefits. And the gateway, before we launched the SDK, is basically a public endpoint that being supported in more than 24 chains. 24 chains, a big part of that you're here in Cosmos, and we're growing and working on that every week. That's the first way you get access to the Lava gateway. The SDK, it's a peer-to-peer SDK. If you think about the word decentralization, so we don't want everyone to think about the misconception of the world, because decentralization is one of the reasons we are here. But everyone here will took to less priority the decentralization if the latency is being heard for that. And that's what we wanted to handle. That's what we wanted to address. It's an SDK. It's a game changer. There's no such a tool like that in all the Web3. Straight from the browser, you're installing the SDK, and you get access to a fleet of nodes. And I'm glad to tell you that since we've launched, we've seen already more than billions of relay use of SDK, hundreds of downloads for the SDK, and more than 200 providers, node runners, joined the Lava family. So as I said before, we're supporting already 24 chains and growing now rapidly. I'm going to use some quotes that our dear friends, dear family here in Cosmos gave us in a break of water. So I like what Jay said about how how we're supporting the Juno in order to help projects such as DAO and Wind to fully decentralize across all parts of the stack. Cryptocito was quoting that decentralization in Web3 is incomplete. If we keep relying on a centralized provider, we are super stoked to contribute to Lava Network testnet. Sunny, everyone relies on the same centralized RPC provider. And if we want to make blockchain better, utilizing decentralized RPC provider like Lava Network is a crucial step. And our friends from Strangelove and Galileo said we back Lava to make every level of the infrastructure development process more decentralized, flexible, and resource optimized. So I'm going back to what we shared before. We have 3 ways to get access to blockchain, right? But if nobody wants to run his own nodes, if nobody can trust the Web2 infrastructure player, so we left with public RPC. And most developers, when they're coming to the chain, when developing the team to a bigger team, when they need production-grade services, they still want to use the public RPC. However, today, it's unreliable. Because on the one hand, there's a lot of ecosystems that have the best top providers, but they don't know how is the performance of the centralized provider. They don't know how to monetize. They don't know how to distribute the funds they put for every top provider at the end of the month, because they don't know what's going back there. So we today, after developing for 1 year the technology, we're introducing our first product, and we call it RPC as public good. Think about a one public RPC endpoint powered by incentivizing the best quality providers by the ecosystem itself, whether by the native token or whether by fiat. But we want to incentivize and attract the community contributors. So if we create a fund, if every ecosystem going to create a fund, can take the same amount of funds that today attracted to the community to run those RPC nodes, we can attract much more developers that are already running the nodes. And here, the difference is the public RPC today doesn't change, doesn't make any difference when you think about attracting developers. If you're already running an RPC node, validators, providers, you can join Lava today. It takes 5 minutes up to 30 minutes to sign up and be listed on Lava in order to provide the nodes and receive rewards at the end of the day. So when you think about the incentivized public RPC that we do, our product is ready. We launched last week, announced with Avmos, and we're working with big ecosystem and amazing, amazing friends here from Cosmos in order to provide this kind of public RPC. We want you, and we want every developer that's coming to Cosmos to focus on the quality, not on the price. Everyone knows today that RPC is becoming a commodity. Everyone knows today that when you go to one provider and afterwards with the same quote to another provider, the price is going down. But when does it end? Why the providers need to subsidize that? So we want the provider to focus on what's matter for them, not on the quotes, not on the financial, not on the marketing. They want to focus on the performance. But RPC, it's only the start. What if we can create a pool of incentivized APIs? We never heard about this thing before in crypto, but we think that every API can be a public good. So we're starting with an RPC, but shortly after, think about you can use if a node runner, if some developer, even single development developed a Stargaze NFT APIs in London. Why cannot get royalties out of that in the same ecosystem? If a Cosmos Hub Wallet API received and developed this API, why cannot somebody in the other side of the globe use that? And the same goes for Smoothis, and the same goes for every different ecosystem. Think about the Uber of APIs. So I'm very excited to be here today, summarizing my first step after launching our Alpha SDK. And I'm so enthusiastic to be here to help, to contribute to this amazing ecosystem that we're so lucky to be part of that. And as we like to say in Lava, let the lava flow. Thank you, guys.
Nice one. I think we have time for a few questions if anyone's keen. Is that all right, Jay? Hey, let me actually let me go over. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Earlier in your talk, you mentioned that node providers sign up and specify the geography that they're in. How do you actually verify that they're actually in that geography? How do you verify that the node provider is actually in London and not just saying they're in London, but they might be in, I don't know, Istanbul?
So we have that's a very good question. We build most of the technology around the performance, around the peer-to-peer. So at the first onboarding, you have, first of all, the accountability of yourself to prove how's the latency. Because from the first, every transaction, you're being accounted and you've been monitored the performance, the latency, what's the uptime, and all of that. So that's how we create a win-win situation for every provider to bring the best performance. By the way, we're working already with BlockDemon, with big other providers that see the value of not running after that, but after the dApps themselves. And another thing that was very interesting is the settlement layer. Because if you think about the billing at the end of the month and you're running after the provider themselves, after the dApps themselves, we do that in Lava.
So the latency is the measure of like geographic distance, is that what you're saying?
Yes, but apparently if you have a performance even in a different region that works better than the hardware you use for running the node the same, it's obviously going to be accountable for that. But the geographic presence is automatically routing the transaction to the dApps in the same region. So to create consensus. What's very interesting about the region is that if you take your question one side further, when you think about dynamic pricing, right? This is the first time you can do that because we see the supply and demand in every different region. So why, if somebody runs a node in China, is the same as running a node in Europe? Maybe there is an NFT drop suddenly in Africa, and there is only 3 providers that's supporting there. So we can attract nodes to where we see high demand.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, let's give it up for Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.